And bam, we're officially kicking it, Dom. Cheers, by the way, everybody. Cheers, Dom.
Hello, let's go.
Hey,
I'm so
hey.
excited.
First off, I always like to start this way. Thank you for taking the time for joining me. We're going to dig into who you are. We're going to let the audience know and all that good stuff. But I usually like to take a minute or two, even with that intro, to just type some messages in the chat. I'm going to be putting your social media. I'm going to put a link to your book. We also have your book in the carousel, guys. So you can check out Dominique's book, What More Is There? And we're gonna dig into that. We're gonna get to that. But first, I figured, while I'm typing and putting some messages in the chat, again, guys, you can feel free to ask questions. Oh, what's up, Lexi? I see you, girl. And so you won't see all the comments coming in because I have like 5 different channels open at the same time. So I'll relay the messages that are coming into you or anything that like everybody's saying, but you'll see some of it coming up in the comments.
Okay.
But yeah, I figure what we could start with is kind of how we know each other and then just kind of like extrapolate that because you have just an amazing story and so much great perspective and things to add. But I figured we could kind of start with how we know each other and I'll kind of start with that and then I'll tag you in. I figure I'll kind of start with like my angel Eric invited me into doing this amazing, I didn't even ask questions. I don't know if I told you this, by the way. Like Eric Urisk is my is like obviously my guy. I've known him for over 15 years and told me about choice. Amazing, just opportunity. And I didn't even ask questions. I'm like, dude, I trust you. Let's do this. We rocked it. That's how we know each other. You were coaching and staffing during my whole entire leadership. And I filled in everybody while I've been live streaming throughout this 100-day journey and like the goals we've been setting and what we've been doing, even throughout the fundraiser. So I appreciate you guys supporting us there. And, Dom, so you actually went through and you have your own experience there too, not only from a coaching and staffing perspective, but going through it yourself. So I'd love to tag you in here and hear your perspective on it. And then we can even talk about how that led even to you becoming a published author.
Yeah, of course. So I love to hear your story and your journey getting here first off. I love that you didn't even ask questions. Like that takes so much courage to just like, you know what? Yeah, let's go for it. And you did the work too, which is amazing. But for me, I went through a year ago actually. And when I got into the workshop, I was already familiar with the center. I was already familiar with all of it because I grew up in it. I went through the teen workshops and then kind of volunteered throughout the years. So I already knew what I was kind of getting myself into, but I was in a pretty low place in my life and I kind of hit rock bottom and was just like, I don't want to, be here. I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety and was like, I just don't know what to do. So I called Donnell, I called my angels, and I called people who enrolled me and loved me and was like, I need help. I need support. I need to get into this. And then that begins the whole journey. I went through the work and it was really difficult and really hard. And then wrote my book and now I'm here coaching, giving back to others.
Bam. And also we got some messages already coming in to say, hey, by the way, Dom. So we got David saying, hey, Ashley saying, hey, maybe that's Lexi because he's saying Ashley Love. And I feel like I haven't seen that person before. So I have a feeling that's Lexi.
That's Lexi's sister.
Okay. So they're saying, hey, and then we got the other channel going in too. And then Jen says, hey, what's up, Jen? Hey, girl. So yeah. And so you speak about courage, by the way, dude. So like talking about courage, being able to saying, because this is one thing I think is interesting. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. When you have an experience, obviously every experience, every time you go into a room or you go into an environment, it's going to be potentially different people. But when you have an experience, I'm curious, but before we even get into like, how this led into you being an author and your book and kind of the dynamics at play there, but going in with expectations and some of the pressure either you put on yourself or maybe some of the potential nerves or feeling the feels going into it even and how that kind of might have influenced things, if you don't mind me asking that, or how you could speak to that.
So courage for me is just a lot of like you want something so bad, your vision is so strong that you're just going to do whatever you want to do. So for me, that's my whole thing around courage. So my vision is so strong. My vision is, giving back to the world and serving others and telling my story to heal others and things in that nature. So being able to give back and stuff like that is so big for me that there's nothing that's going to stop me. So coming onto your podcast or taking the risk to coach and guide other people, it's scary and it's a lot and it's very uncomfortable, but my vision is so big that there's nothing that can shake it.
Bam. And then, David, great question. So what's the name of your book? So David, I'm going to highlight it right now in the carousel. Funny that you should mention. Let me pull it up right here. And then bam, Dom actually has it. And I actually had it behind me, but I don't even want to get into the story earlier that there's a whole story of I was really excited. I ordered the book, and then we talked about this because I saw you this weekend. I was out in Vegas and I saw it down. We kind of put this together last minute because I've been talking about having you on for a minute. And, it's just like figuring out the schedule. And I was like, yo, I'm going to be transparent. I hadn't read your book yet. I have it sitting on my shelf. And my amazing wife reorganized the whole house. But here's the downside. This is where I had a breakdown. I didn't properly put the book somewhere where it'd be secure. So now it's like in a pile somewhere that I get to now go through. So that's where I get to yes, I get to go through that and find that now. So I can then actually read it and give you back proper notes. So, but David, I highlighted it right now in the carousel. Go check it out. What more is there? And we're going to get into that too, because I want there's so much to dig into, even with that, dude. But I wanted to kind of pull it back and talk about courage and talk about even all those dynamics. So I wonder, going into leadership. So I'm going to try and not use vernacular and I'm going to try and use regular words that everyone's going to get. So check me on this too, because I rant a lot. Hey guys, tell me if I'm using things that you're like, what is LP? I don't understand what you're talking about. But going through this 100-day experience, did you know right away you wanted to write a book? Because I know that maybe this is how did we even get to the book? Maybe I shouldn't even fill people in. Talk to us how we even got here. How did the book, how'd you manifest this?
So it's always been a dream of mine to write a book. I mean, I love to tell my story. I think I've been through a lot of trauma and I've experienced a lot of things. And I always knew that my voice was going to impact others. Growing up, it was always something my friends and family would tell me, oh, that your words would be so helpful to people. It could really, truly change people's lives. And so I was like, I always thought about it. And I love words and I love English and I love how words can be so poetic and meaningful. So I just kind of put the two together and was like, well, let me just write a book. How fun. And then when going through leadership after discovering breakthrough, I needed to think of a goal. And I was like, I don't know. I have nothing that I do. I mean, mind you, before I went through choice, I was in a pretty low place. I didn't really see anything for my life. So creating goals and stuff, I was like, what in the heck? But I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to write a book. And so I was like, let's go. I'm going to write a book. So I just set that as my goal and I got it done. And it was a lot of work and a lot of emotion, but it got done and it's completed.
And obviously you don't have to speak to anything that you don't want to. You do want to. Obviously, this is a completely open space. And also, what's up, Maxine? Maxine says, hey, by the way, in the chat on the other channel. And my point of saying this is how is it going in? Did you know exactly right away where you wanted this to go? Or did it kind of filter itself out throughout the process? Because I'm curious, I have my own experience and how I create content. I'm curious for you if this was a trial by fire kind of a situation, which I imagine maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm just kind of curious what the process even looked like. Because I know there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this and even the replay. And, I know for a fact, without even getting into it, I know you're going to empower people just because of who you are and my experience of you. So I know people are going to hear this and be inspired to want to take action themselves. So I'm curious what that looked like for you, because I know that's going to help people.
So honestly, I started off writing my book as just a poetry book. I was like, it's just going to be poetry, no pictures, no nothing, just going to be poetry. And then throughout the process, I got kind of lack of motivation. I just didn't write for a month. It was just like, I don't know what to do. I need to change my goal. This is not going to work for me, And then I had a conversation with my coach, Coach Shishi. And
yes,
she. And it was her telling me it's hard and it's difficult and it's uncomfortable, but maybe what you're trying to do is that perfect image of what you think was going to make people interested in my book. I thought people wanted a poetry book and I thought people wanted me to talk about certain things. And then I realized that wasn't what was filling my cup. It wasn't giving me the space to really be authentic. So I shifted gears and it's just my mental journal now. That's what I call it. It's just my thoughts and images put onto paper and explaining everything that I needed to explain, whether it's just one word or a whole page of words or whatever that looks like, just going through all that. But it was very up and down. It had a lot of moments where I was just like, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do it. But my vision, was to write my book, and that's what it was. So I set my intentions, I got clear, and that's what I was going to do.
Boom. I appreciate that vulnerability and the transparency there, because I feel like sometimes it's easy to say oh yeah, I just I had this outline, I crushed it. It was easy. No problems came up, but to be real, to pull back those layers and to be able to be transparent. And again, like it's that Brene Brown, I'm going to butcher it and paraphrase a little bit, but like vulnerability is the first thing I want to see in you. It's the last thing that I want to give up. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm hearing that you're doing just right now and that you've been able to progressively step into. And I always appreciate that from you and my experience of that. And then also David's in the chat. So yeah, David, I put her full name. So for those of you that don't, like, I'm also Dominique, you know what I realized? I'm super insecure about name pronunciation. And I have never had to say your last name. And I like look at it and I'm like, I want to say it's Korschinowski, but like, I feel like that's not even close.
You're kind of close. It's Korschinowski.
Yeah. So like, okay.
Polish.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad.
Pretty close. People butcher it way worse. So you did a great job.
All right. So I put that in there, guys. And again, I have the carousel. It's in there. So if you guys want to grab that, I highly recommend. And the beautiful thing you even said, like, listen, it's going to be an enjoyable read and something that you can digest too. Cause I like the digestion concept of it. And so anyways, now let's we're going to kind of go back and forth. We're going to go into the past. We're going to bring it forward. So now let's even bring it fast forward a little bit. We have the books out. What's going on right now? What I'm curious, like, this is my favorite thing to ask. This is even like when I talk to like clients on the phone, I talk to friends. One of my favorite questions to ask is like, what's one thing you're like super excited about or the biggest positive in your life over the last 7 days or in the last like couple weeks?
So in the last couple of weeks, I love the question though. I love it because it makes you really sit and get grounded about what's really stuck out to you. So for me, a lot of love and support around my second book that's coming out, which there's no teasers for that yet because I don't have much there, but the second book that's coming out, as well as me stepping into my authenticity. I'm very proud of where I'm at right now in my vulnerability and stepping into that and putting it out in the world and having conversations and building relationships is probably the thing that I'm like the most proud of right now.
That's huge. So I don't want to like just walk past that because I want to unpack that a little bit because that's a powerful thing. I think a lot of us can relate to is being able to step into that. And I wonder, also I'm curious the overlap with all the work that you do for others, all that you do with serving other people, giving back, and what that does for you. Like, because I think of like the idea of like, I at least when I came into Choice too, I felt like I was trying to fill an empty void. And I was trying to fill it with all these other things. And I realized relationships and people and connection was really what was filling me up. So I'm wondering for you, where do you see that coming from? And what do you see the aspect of like being able to coach, being able to serve, being able to give back to people? How does that show up in your life?
At first, I feel like it was very difficult for me to balance it. Like I was giving so much that I was not taking care of myself. And then I would go into these really low places and was like, oh, I don't want to do anything. I need to push everybody away, isolate. I wouldn't text anybody back, call anybody. I was calling off of work. And then I realized that there gets to be a balance. The only way that I could coach others into living a life that's transformed and the vision that they see for themselves was to do the work for myself and take care of myself. So once I found that balance, it's easier. Now, what fills my cup is 100% giving back. Like, there's nothing in the world that I love more than being able to serve other people. Watching people's transformation, them step into their power, their dreams, their goals. Like watching my loved ones and the people that are around me go from like being victim or being shy and held back by their own barriers and then stepping in and taking risks. Like it's the coolest thing to me. So what fills my cup there is just always giving back, always serving, when in doubt, focus out. So.
Oh, I got to write that.
Fire, huh?
Yeah, dropping it. I hope you guys are taking notes. Good news is this is actually, not only are we live, but this is recorded so you guys can watch a replay. So if you want to play this back and play, and we're honestly like transparently, I have an editor come back and cut little snippets. So that's definitely going to have to be one of them later on. But so that's a big one too. So you touched on a big thing I heard that really resonated with me was self-care. So I wonder right now, or maybe just in general, in the last 6 months, what are some things that have really, been helpful for you with self-care? And it doesn't have to just be one thing. Maybe it's just like a category of things. Cause I know a lot of people, when we talk about this on the podcast, on all my content, like self-care is such a crucial thing. So many people can like relate to, and it resonates with them. So I'm curious, how does self-care show up in your life?
Wow, it's crazy that you just brought that up because I was just talking to one of my friends about this today, giving her tips and things to try. So
Nice.
I struggle, I guess lately I've been struggling a lot with like body image. And for a good portion of my life, I struggled with an eating disorder. And lately I've noticed that I'm kind of having some things come up around it. So self care for me lately has been huge. So what I've been doing, and it sounds so crazy, okay? But I set my phone up whenever I have a thought, or if I'm getting ready, or if I'm brushing my teeth or anything, and I record myself. And then I make sure at the end of the night, I watch back all of my videos. And instead of picking myself apart as if I would usually do, like, oh, I don't like that. Your hair looks weird. You look tired. Your voice sounds weird. I just acknowledge all the things that I love about it. So like, oh, I'll watch this back and be like, oh, I love your hair. Your hair looks so cute. Your shirt, yeah, that's really nice color on you. Like, I'll go back. That's one of the things that's really been dominant for me. As well as setting myself a schedule. Self-care is like 100% for me. Like I have to know 8 a.m. I'm waking up. I'm going to have 20 minutes of meditation, and I'm going to sit with my own thoughts and just prayers of gratitude and whatever comes into me. And then I'm going to get up and I'm going to make a schedule for myself throughout the day until 8 or 9 o'clock. And then I give myself a free space from whatever time I want to go to sleep. Don't have that time. So just whatever time my body feels ready to go to bed. Quality time, give back, a lot of give back. Anytime I feel like I'm sad or I'm not making it, or I'm in a dark place, I want to give back. I want to coach. I want to go meet people. I want to go on the streets and compliment people, whatever that looks like. I just want to serve others. Those are a couple things.
I mean, I think what you started with, I absolutely love. I'm totally borrowing that, by the way. So I'm totally going to use that and even like pass that on to people, because I think that's such a powerful thing. And in different, exercise or different experiences, even from my own perspective of like looking at a picture of me as a child, right? And thinking about there's that inner child in all of us, right? And be like, would I yell at that child? Would I what would you say to that child, right? Like I would say nothing but beautiful things. And that's even when I'm looking at you right now, like I would even offer up like your eyes look beautiful, right? Like your hair looks great.
Yeah.
You're looking on point. Like those are the things that we can focus on, but sometimes having that for ourselves and holding that space for ourselves. I really appreciate that transparency too, because even for my own self, that resonates with me. And I was talking to somebody else. I was talking to Coach Nicole the other day. She goes, I can't believe that you were heavy as a kid. Like I was like obese as a child. So like, I think sometimes people see this image of us now and they don't necessarily see all the other pieces that are going on. So I appreciate even just, again, going back to that transparency and peeling back that layer. So speaking of this is where I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth. And then Amber's like, yes. Can I get a whoop in the chat? I see you guys in the chat. Yeah, Maxine. Yeah, David. And being able to now go even into the book. So like you mentioned a few things, even like things that are coming up in different ways. And you didn't exactly say this, but tell me if I'm misrepresenting what you're saying, but like honoring that and not necessarily trying to either fight off those feelings, but saying, hey, this is okay. Whatever comes up, that's all right. And then even going into your book and as you're progressively writing that, I'm wondering what came up for you as you're going through that, through your life experience, because there's like probably so much there. And I'd love to hear more whenever you're comfortable to share with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an open book, so whatever, if you have questions about anything, just ask me. I discovered a lot of things about myself with my book. I mean, I was going through a trauma timeline. I was writing down from 4 years old, my most significant trauma, which was my mom passing away and being murdered. And then going into the rest of my life to the place that I was at in February of this year when I published it, like where I was at in that moment and all the things that I had learned. So I was developing and learning about all these new traumas and things that I had no idea were even sitting there. So I'm up and down, I'm crying, I'm angry. I mean, I hit some low points. It was a tough time writing the book, but it was also the most healing. I discovered all these things, but the only way to like grow is to hit that spot and to be able to push forward and, learn. So I'm grateful to hit those spots, but it was hard. A lot of things came up. A lot of traumas came up.
Yeah. And one thing I really appreciate about that is your willingness to go into that, your willingness to dive into it. And not saying every single moment it's like, hey, this is super easy. It's super easy to like hold space for that. And this is where I want to kind of pull in the circle and the people you have around you, whether it's we're looking at like the choice family, your actual family, and like everyone in between. From my experience of them, you have an amazing group of people around you. And you like, I'm really, really like, it's awesome to watch. It's really inspiring, honestly, like for the ripple effect you've created in your life and your family's life. Like it inspires me the way I take action with my own family every day, whether it's my kids, my wife, my brother, my mom, my cousin. Like my cousin's my co-host on this podcast. She's actually on a flight right now to DR. But anyways, my point is like, I'd love to just kind of take some time to talk about the impact that circle has had on you. And then also like, then you've impacted that circle. And like, I saw Derek this weekend, like being able to just see all the ripple effects there.
Yeah. So my circle of people is absolutely amazing. For a long period of my life, I was running away from my family because there was so much trauma. So I was living with friends, and I was moving to Utah, and I was anywhere but with my family. And then after choice, I really realized that I wasn't lucky enough to be blessed with like a lot of blood family that, unconditional love, accepting, in the traditional household that you would say. A lot of my family and my circle of people is my chosen family. And I'm very proud of that because, it's not that my biological family or my blood family is bad. We all experience trauma, but it's the love and the connection that my group of people, Amber, Dest, and Derek, and having my friends like Lexi and my best friend Kai, and, all these people in my family go through. That's where my family's at. That's where it's at. And I have a village around me. And, I was like, I don't have to run from this anymore. I don't have to be afraid of being hurt from them anymore. So then I allowed myself to go home and rebuild all those relationships and connect, and then enroll all my family and encourage them to step into their power. And then, what they've given back to me is the same thing. Like watching them grow is what feeds me. I don't need any gifts or anything back from them. It's all watching them step into their power in their lives and take ownership and go after everything they've ever wanted. Watching my cousin Amber, who, was very, very timid and very shy and very angry, to a fairy. She's like dancing around and smiling and is so happy. And to see that transition, just like that fills my cup. That's all I need.
Dude, that makes me so happy. Like even just right now, having you talk about it, and then Amber's like, "Oh, I love you, Dom." Yeah, you guys are awesome. You guys, like seriously, like it really just warms the soul is like the best way I could word it. And having that, I think also being able to realize like, and then yeah, I love you, Dom. That's from Lexi. Yeah, Lexi, I see you, girl.
Oh, I love you guys.
That's exactly like this is it. Like you guys could just like look in the chat for those of you that don't know who Amber or Alexia, like that's family, right? So like being able to see that, being able to have that, and then also realizing like, hey, like it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be moments where we're going to be sad, we're going to be happy, we're going to cry, like all the variables. But I'm curious, like how, because this is another interesting thing, since Amber and Lexi and now like now Derek going into work and like being everyone kind of growing themselves. What has that done for your relationships? Like, like not as you've grown, but as everybody's grown together.
Wow, that's a powerful question. So my family has been pretty disconnected for a long time. There was a lot of hurt and pain in my family that nobody really wanted to talk about. And I got to a point where I was like, we need to talk about things. Like, I want my family to be close. Like, I want to be that person in my family that just connects us. So yes. I just had the conversations, and by them like transforming their lives, when we have arguments or disagreements or something like that, instead of us like blowing each other off and not talking or anything, we still like all the time tell each other, I love you. Like, no matter what, I love you. Or like, I'm here if you need anything, or, communicating like, hey, this really pissed me off. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes it takes like a couple weeks to build up to it, where I'm like, I'm going to stay mad for about a month and then I'll go into it. But it came to a point where like, for me, it takes a lot to even get me worked up. But when we're in the situation and things do come up, we know that I'm not pissed off because you didn't turn the fan off in the bedroom. It's more of, I'm mad because I don't have control and I want control, or whatever that looks like. So we all understand that there's something deeper. So when we communicate, it's not surface level anymore.
So I'm going to give you guys another example for everyone listening at home, because I know I like one, and I'm curious. Let me know in the chat too, guys, if you're hearing us. Like, because I don't want to make assumptions. That's something I've also learned to do as I've gone through this, is to not assume, and just I genuinely want to hear from you guys. So let me know in the chat questions, then if that what you're hearing, but also like I'll give you a perfect example. So I just flew in today, back from Vegas, and like I have an amazing wife. She's like super supportive. She's holding it down with the girls. The girls are awesome. But I got to be honest with you, like I didn't sleep really well on the plane. I'm a little cranky, so I'm like in my feels about like just being a cranky butt. And all of that being said, she like moved some things around. It's like at the end of the day, who cares? I can move it back. It's not the point. I wanted her to validate me and just saying like, hey, I hear you. It wasn't about all those other things. So to your point, what I kind of heard you say is sometimes it's not about what we're saying on the outside. It's really like, what's the underlying thing? Is it like validation or whatever's kind of going on there? And I think that's really helpful. And like even going through, as we dive into learning about ourselves, understanding like, hey, what do I really want? Like, what is going on here? What's really happening? Am I mad at like you left the lights in the other room? Or is it because I feel disrespected because of something that happened 20 years ago or whatever, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, who knows? But I think that's an interesting aspect as well. I'm curious your thoughts, because you even have like way more experience than me. And like, especially with all the variables of coaching and your own personal experience, like I'd love to hear even more from that too. And how, because you've seen a variety of people, like dozens and dozens of people now go through it too. So like you get to see it from really cool perspectives.
Yeah, so it kind of comes with two ends. On one end, we get to take the responsibility for ourselves. And then on the other end, we also get to realize that people are where they're at and that's their experience. So you referenced a while ago or earlier that, the inner child, validating our younger selves. Like, and I noticed, so if I was tired and I'm overly tired and my family rearranges my bedroom, I'm not really pissed off about the fact that my bedroom was rearranged. I'm pissed off because I'm tired, but I'm going to be tired either way. It's not going to go away. So I can either choose to react on that tiredness and be like, oh my gosh, you destroyed my room. Like I had it perfectly how I wanted it and flip my crap. Or I can say like, well, they thought they were doing something nice and maybe they were having an anxious day and really just needed to clean things. Maybe that was their coping skill, maybe this, maybe that. So it's really coming from like responsibility on our end that like we get to choose our reaction. And then on the other end, it's understanding that other people might not always be in the same space that we're in. They have their experience, they're where they're at, and maybe that's just what they needed.
And what I'm hearing you say too, you didn't say this word, but like, I wonder if it's the underlying tone of like empathy, right? It's like and like understanding, for me, this was a really impactful concept for me to grasp. I'm still constantly trying to digest and understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. And really, when you come from a place of empathy, what that can look like versus just that sympathy. Or I feel like this was a Brene Brown example from one of the books that we read, where it's like, all right, you're in a ditch or you're in a hole, right? Sympathy is like looking down and being like, oh, that sucks. And you just keep on rolling, right? But empathy is like, hey, I'm going to get down here and get in the dark with you. And I'll be with you here. I'm not even going to try and fix anything, but I'll be with you here and know that I'm here with you. And that's like an interesting concept that I constantly try and wrap my mind around.
Yeah, I think that's really important, coming from a place of empathy. I mean, sympathy is great and all, when you see things from another country that you don't have control over, send that sympathy, channel that energy. But if it's in your space and you have the control, always come from a place of empathy and love. If you come from love, your intentions always show through. And then if you're coming from a place of empathy, you can see somebody else's stance a lot easier. It's always, you never know what someone else is going through. I mean, I'm great. Or my story from before was, I can pretend to be happy and put on a smile and no one would ever know that anything is wrong with Dom. And then I suffered in silence for years and nobody knew because I was always happy. My friends used to joke and be like, you're the smiley one, always happy. Like that was my mask. So you never know what someone's going through because on the underlying end of that, I was being abused at home and I was, being sexually assaulted or whatever that looks like. No one had any idea about that because I was smiling. So come from empathy because you never know what anybody else is struggling with.
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful point. I always like, again, I'm going to reiterate, it's going to be like an echoing concept, like just the transparency there, the vulnerability, and then the strength that comes from that too. Cause like, I think those go hand in hand a lot of times. I'm curious your thoughts on this from your own life experience of like when you're vulnerable and when you're being transparent, the strength that really has to be paired with it. Otherwise that really just wouldn't be the same. But I'm curious, I don't want to like assume that's how you feel. I'm curious your thoughts on how they kind of pair together too.
Oh, yeah. I think they pair together 100% because I think it takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm not okay. I really need help. Or, hey, I'm feeling really alone. Can you validate me? Can you make me feel seen? I think they go hand in hand. For me, I grew up and everyone was always like, you're so strong. And that word became toxic for me. So I hooked on the idea that like I had to be strong all the time. Dom was strong. And if Dom wasn't strong, everybody else was not strong. And it stuck with me probably up until like probably 4 or 5 months ago, really, when I really started processing some grief and some loss. And, they go hand in hand because it takes so much strength from me to sit here and say, I have an eating disorder or I struggle with my self image or talk about my trauma. But then the power in this vulnerability will move one person in the world. One person will hear something that I say and it'll make sense for them and they'll feel seen and they'll feel validated. So the strength to me now it's easy because now my passion is other people and I'm so focused outward that it's easy for me to have the strength to be vulnerable for others.
So, and one thing I'm hearing too is like when you tie your identity to one aspect or variable, and then you have to re-identify, I guess, for maybe lack of a better term, that can be really scary, right? There could be so many things that comes up with that. So I'm wondering, because I like just the personal experience of it. Like when I retired from fighting, like I identified as a fighter, right? So if I'm not a fighter, who am I? What am I?
Yeah.
And I wonder for you, as you're starting to like re-identify here, what comes up and like what did that look like? What does it continue to look like? Because obviously it's not like, hey, everyone's perfect now. Like it's a constant day-to-day growth process. And I was talking to Will about this the other day. Like you can have comfort or you can have growth, but you can't have both, at least not at the same time, right? So I'm curious your thoughts on like just all of that, putting it out there.
Man, Mike, you're asking all the questions that everything that I experienced throughout the last year of my life, you're asking all the questions about it. So I'm having so much fun right now. So, it's kind of tough to put into words and stuff, but for me, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, let me think. Ask me again. Let me process this again.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of like rephrase that. So like when we think about like you can have comfort and you can have growth, I'm kind of gonna go back and I'm gonna reverse engineer this. So looking at that, and then when we look at our identity, and if you tie your identity to whatever it is, whether it's like, hey, I'm strong, right? Like I'm smiley, strong, like nothing's gonna phase me. And then being able to then shift into like, oh man, like I can cry, or like I can say, hey, I'm not okay. Like, hey, I think I have like personally, like transparent, like just because you're being transparent. I always like to honor that transparency of like, I have my own unhealthy relationship with my body and with food, which is people think is so ironic. Oh, what's up, Azima? Azima sends love, by the way, down. Yeah, girl. And like being able to have that and being able to acknowledge that. So I'm curious, like, again, bringing it all the way back to the original, I guess, point or question is when you tie your identity to something and then you're shifting that identity and the discomfort that can go with it. I'm curious, like, walk me through that as far as what was originally, like, maybe not play by play, but what really resonates with you as you're starting to say, hey, this is just a piece of me, right? Maybe it's a layer, but it's not who you are, and letting go of that identity and then being able to grow into this amazing person that you are now and here.
Wow, actually, I struggle with imposter syndrome to the max. And that's something that, as you're saying that, is really sticking out to me, like imposter, because for so long, I identified myself as like, I have to be strong, I have to be energized. And to use an example to kind of put that into, terms for people, I lost one of my best friends last year to suicide. And it was really hard for me to like grasp the idea that like I could grieve her. I had to be sad. I needed to be sad. But I didn't feel like I had the space to because I was around her family. I was around all of my friends. I was around my family. And I thought that, I got compliments like, wow, your energy really helps us. You really help us feel strong. And then that triggered me. When I was younger, after my mom had passed, my aunts, I walked into a room and my aunts were saying the same thing, that the only thing that's keeping us strong is them being strong. So it was my identity for all of my life to be the strong, happy, fun Dom. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I realized that now me being vulnerable and stuff like that is what connects my energy. Everything that I want is by me coming from a place of vulnerability. And I've been able to see it play out in my relationships and, fact versus interpretation. I look at the facts and I'm like, oh, in all of my relationships, they've elevated from 2s or 3s or 4s to 8s, 9s, 10s. I have the best relationships I've ever had in my life, and things come up. Yeah, they struggle sometimes, but
of course,
all relationships do. But I had to get to a place that I could see that the fact of it was that my relationships were even increasing. The people that are around me in my circle, the energy, the conversations I'm having with people. That's the fact of it, is that me being in that space has shifted. Me being vulnerable and authentic, I'm seeing the results. But I do get that imposter syndrome. Sometimes when I'm in a low place, I'm like, am I really this happy? Am I really a giver? Do I love people? Do I really feel that way? And then I talk myself down like, nope, it's all fake, da da da. But I just have to remember the facts. Like, but look at what you're doing with other people. Look at the relationships you're building. Look at how much you give back. Look at how like good it makes your heart feel, kind of thing, you know?
100%. So it's funny that you said, not it's funny, but I guess ironic that you said imposter syndrome, because that's something I resonate so wholeheartedly with, like throughout. And then, yeah, Azima, 100%. What a powerful woman. Your voice is inspiring, Dom. All the love.
Thank you.
And, okay, what's up, King Hustler? I see you. So I think being able to hold, like, again, hold that space, being able to acknowledge like, hey, you don't have to just have that piece. I like, so, and now seeing, like, reminding yourself, like, from the imposter syndrome side of it to like giving yourself those cues. I just wanted to acknowledge, like, I can wholeheartedly resonate with that. Even as someone that's been like in the health space for almost 20 years, I'm like, why do people listen to me? Like, what am I doing? Like, do I even know anything? Like, but what's interesting was when I talk to people that I really respect, they very rarely speak in definitives from my experience. Like, it's interesting though, because I've gone to different conferences. I'm not gonna throw people under the bus or name names, but some really high profile people in the UFC, MMA kind of world or professional athlete space, some of them that speak in definitives, it's like, yeah, you could see like where there might be some like I don't want to say shortcomings, but that's like the first thing that comes to my mind. So maybe that's not the best way to put it, but some potential barriers they're going to have to overcome in another stage of their life. And I say all this just to bring it forward. Now looking ahead, now this is where I get to kind of talk about like some awesome positives, some things that you're excited about from the past, looking at these things. I'm wondering if we look ahead, it's September, right? So we got the rest of the year in front of us from now until New Year's. What are you excited about? What is ahead? I know you mentioned your book, so that's really exciting. But I'm curious. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm curious, like, what are you excited about? What's coming?
Well, I'm excited about a couple of things. So getting to coach right now is what I'm actively in. So I'm coaching 206, another group at Choice Center. And we just had our discovery first weekend, then we have breakthrough. So I'm looking forward to that experience. And continuing to do a lot of personal development myself, taking other signature courses and things like that. And then mostly excited about my book. And my projected date for this one is January 1st, 2023. I want to start the year off with a bang with my new book. That's my intention. It's where we're going. But with that, and then, just redesigning my life, redesigning myself. I heard somebody one time say that if you want to be a multi-million-dollar like business owner, you got to dress to play the part. Yeah. And I was like, like that's kind of cool. And then I started watching videos on women who were doing like mundane things like going grocery shopping or going to pick up their medicine, but they were dressed up. And I was like, oh, I want to try that. Like, that's fun. So now I do that. So what I'm projected to do is like just having, like sessions where I'm just getting my pictures taken and things like that, just for fun because I want to, or going and meeting new people, being on podcasts, putting myself out there, eventually starting my own podcast, That's so far what's coming up for me.
So that's so exciting. And so I'm curious, like this is maybe a weird thing that just came to mind, but I was listening to a book on the way home and sometimes we'll put like these self-defined parameters, like windows of time, which is super exciting to hear January 1st. But I wonder, how do you balance out the potential pressure that can arise at times? We're saying, hey, I have this deadline, January 1st or January 2023 versus like, hey, it'll be when it's supposed to be, kind of a variable, and playing that balance, right? Like, I'm curious what kind of comes across for you with that.
This is so important, Mike. My aunt, when I first decided I was going to write my book for LP, for leadership, she sat me down and said, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, I want to write a book. And she's like, okay, by when? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, what? Yeah. And she's like, by when? And I said, oh, February 2023. Like, give myself a year to figure it out. Yeah. And then I learned the importance of setting a date. So if I set a date, then it's set in stone. I don't just set the date with myself, though. I set the date with myself, with my best friend, with my cousins, with my family. I set the date with people around me because I want people to hold me accountable. So if I say by January 1st, 2023, my next book is going to be out there, then all these people can hold me accountable. And the importance of that is that like I don't give myself room for excuses. If I say January 1st and it's not complete by January 1st, then like what didn't work? What was my breakdown? And how do I get to shift it? And what's my new date? It's so important to set those dates, those by whens, because then you're telling your brain like, this is what I get to do. I'm committed to it. It's going to help me towards my vision and my future and what I want for my life. So I'm going to get it done by this date. So by January 1st, 2023, my book will be done and we'll be ready to publish.
Bam. And there's not even I'm going to try. There's like, that's what's happening. And that's the action steps. And that, I love hearing that and hearing you speak to that. And that's where I think it's interesting. And I'm curious, those in the chat too, that you guys can relate to this, is like, it can become very easy to keep moving the yardstick, is the expression. Like, oh, okay, like I need 2 more weeks, or like, give me a couple more hours or a couple more days, or whatever the variable at play there, the timeline at play there is. But if we do that long enough, years will pass by, right? And we'll have nothing to show for it. And I've been there. I'm not saying like I haven't done that. I've totally done that. And I find myself like tempted to do that. But that's why I love surrounding myself with people like you and just all the people we get to go through with, because it's saying, hey, by when? No. Don't tell me like, oh, okay, in a little bit or whatever, by when. And then it's cool because then you can say, all right, let's reverse engineer that. If we need to have it done by January, when do you need to have your first draft done? When do you need to have the outline done? And then Bub said he loves you, by the way, Dom. Yeah, Bubs. Shout out to Bubs.
Oh, that's my nephew.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is like, if you want it, what are you willing to do to make it happen? How bad do you really want it if you're just going to sit on your couch and say, oh, I love that car over there. I want it one day, but maybe not today. No, if you want it, go get it. Because if you don't want it, I mean, like if you wanted it, you'd have it. So, and you do whatever it took to get there. And that, I definitely think that comes situational and stuff too, as well. You know, there's processes around that. But when it comes to my goals and what I want to do, if I say I want to publish my book, I'm going to publish my book because I want to do it. Yep. I say I want my career to be around writing, which is what I want it to do. And I want to be an author and I want it to be known. One day it's going to happen, and it will be that way because I'm saying it and I'm declaring it.
That's it. Speaking into existence. And I think the idea of like, again, standing impossible, because the brain is such a powerful thing. This is one thing I geek out about as I've gone into different, like I've gotten different grant programs now, like even after like our leadership, like being able to get a grant to go into this continuing education course, or like wanting to do a PhD in neuroscience and understanding. So here's an interesting data point I talked about in my newsletter. I'm going to share with you guys. So Stanford had a university study. They released this. You guys can like Google this if you want, or I'll drop the link in the chat if you guys want to check me on it. Well, they were talking about the interesting component of when we're in a joyful, empathetic, like happy place, anyone within a 1 mile radius around us, they would do these fMRIs and these neurofeedback studies, and they would find the increased chance of, without even me and you talking, let's say we're within a 1 mile radius of one another, you're in a great place, my chances of being happier without even talking to you goes up by 25% without us even talking. It's like the power of that and the impact that creates, I think, is such an, like, it goes beyond words to me.
That's why the significance of our ways of being is so important, because I notice it with animals. Like I will be in such a great mood and I'm in such a great space, and I'll go into a restaurant and I'll notice that all of a sudden the line has gotten 10 times longer since I've walked in. And it's over and over and over again. And that sounds crazy to people, but I notice that my energy when I'm in a space of authenticity and vulnerability and love, I see the ripple around me. I see my friend groups change. I see the conversations around me change. You know, your ways of being are so significant to how other people perceive you and the space that you create around you.
So here's an interesting, I'm curious your thoughts on this. And I haven't actually had someone directly say this to me, but indirect ways. And it just kind of came to mind. Because I feel like some people out there, I like to anticipate like, hey, what are people thinking out there? And also let us know in the chat too, if you guys have different perspectives on this. But like, I feel like if I'm in it, like there's a difference between like being authentically ourselves, but then also perpetuating a cycle, right? So like if I'm authentically upset in a situation, it's like, okay, holding space for me to be and feel my feels, but at a certain point deciding, making a decision, like what's my way of being? Do I want to be this way? Or is it something that I can then say, hey, I'm going to focus on my gratitude. I'm going to focus on my breath. I'm going to focus on whatever that is. And the potential perspective of someone saying, oh, well, that just seems inauthentic, actually. That seems a way of being fake, or like whatever word you want to throw out there. Because my argument back would be like, I think that's kind of the farthest thing from my perspective and experience of it. It's actually quite the opposite. And again, just because that's what I'm saying doesn't mean that's like what it should be. That's just my experience, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. These are just our experiences, you know. And I think the biggest thing is that people always tell me like, "Oh, you fake it till you make it," though. So if you're not feeling confident, you just pretend to feel confident, and then you're confident. And in a sense, that's kind of what we're doing with our brains. But what I'm doing when I'm not feeling confident, and then all of a sudden I'm like, get up and do your makeup, or get yourself together and
Mm.
go be confident. Then I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna be confident. And then it just comes. Like, and I'm just like, I'm confident. If I say what I don't want to be, it's not, I don't want to be insecure. I don't want to get up. I don't want to be confident. Okay, that's where I'm going to be at, because my brain can't focus on the negative. So if I'm going to be confident, I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to get it. And I get that a lot, where it's like, so you just fake it till you make it kind of thing. In a sense, yeah, that's kind of what you're doing, but it's really what you're choosing in the moment to shift. So if it doesn't serve me to be sad for longer than an hour, then I'm gonna set my timer for an hour and say, okay, at an hour, we're done being sad. We're good. We're good. Now we get to step into what is gonna work. Okay, what's gonna work for me right now? All right, vulnerability, authenticity. And then boom, that works for me. You know, I sit in it, and I really do set myself a timer. And I say, okay, you're in the funks right now. You've got 2 hours to be in the funk. And then after that, you get to go talk to somebody. And then it's usually one of my best friends, sending them a text or sending them a video of me explaining what's going on in my head. And then, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, but this is how I'm shifting. And then boom.
And what I'm hearing you say too is the action steps there too. Whether it's like, hey, I'm gonna make a choice to take action to like put on my makeup, or to go for a walk, or to reach out to a loved one, or to reach out to a friend, to open a conversation, as opposed to, and this kind of like, I want to even circle back to this idea of you like, if we choose, and like in with procrastination, like there can be the illusion, from my experience, just from my perspective, of like, oh, I'm seeking comfort by like, oh, I'm going to skip this training session, or I'm not going to go do this thing. But really, I found like, if I'm sitting on the couch, I'm just like judging myself the whole time. And I'm not even enjoying sitting on the couch anyway. So it's like, I might as well have done the thing. And this way, it's like, I'm actually just making it more conflict, a bigger kind of barrier to have to overcome, and more judgment that tends to go along with that. So it's like the discomfort of growth, or the discomfort of like disappointment, or whatever fill in the blank word you want to put in there, or whatever's happening there as well.
Yeah, like that's so funny that you say the discomfort of growth, or just discomfort of just sitting there. So I realized for me, for a long time, I think I was addicted to the sadness. Like, I
Ooh.
knew that what I wanted was on the other side of it, but I only wanted to go so far in my work before I got too uncomfortable and was like, nope, we're not touching that subject. Like, going into depths around the passing of my mom, I was like, nope. I'll tell people how she passed, she was murdered. But going into the details of that, I was always like, never. Then I put it in my book on what happened, how she was murdered, and kind of explain a little bit. And it was like, being able to actually take that step and talk about it, okay, brought me a little bit of comfort. Okay, I'm growing in the right direction. You know, I'm doing that. But once I got past realizing that, like, I was addicted to the sadness, I wanted to do the work to a certain extent, but it got too uncomfortable too far, and I was just going to sit. So I had to become addicted to my growth, addicted to the uncomfortable. And that's whatever form that looks like. I shifted it from being addicted to the sadness and sitting in my stuff, to being addicted to wanting more and wanting greater and better and just everything right for myself. But also, you talked about the self-discipline aspect of that, you know, the action steps to getting there. I just found a bunch of things that I love to do that bring me some kind of joy, and just stepped into it. I love to try different styles with my hair, because growing up, I never knew how to take care of my hair. As a Black woman, I never knew what to do. So finding different things to do with my hair, I get up and I'm like, you know what? Let's try twist. And that's what I did yesterday. I was like, let's just try it. And then boom, I got up and I love it. Or like, you know what? Let me go in the room and go tell my friend that I love her. I'm going to go do it. Why not? Whatever, like, just fills my cup in any way, I do in that moment.
Dude, there's so much I want to unpack there. But one thing that resonates with me, or not with me, but I've seen this with other loved ones of mine, and I'm curious your thoughts around this. And I don't want to like misrepresent it, but the idea of, if we tie our identity to an experience, or like partially the identity to an experience, but also if we let go of maybe that sadness or those feelings, thinking about the situation or your mom or the loved one or whatever's going on there, maybe we lose them, or the illusion of potentially losing them. But I'm just curious, like speaking more to that, like as we like dig into it, because I think there's a lot of layers to unpack there in so many different ways.
Yeah, so I actually have a huge fear of losing people to death. I've lost a lot of people to death in my life, like more than any 23-year-old probably has experienced. And being able to like, oh, being able to like separate that, that's a really good question. Being able to like separate that, wow.
All the questions, all the
Yeah, you've
perspective.
got me thinking. You've got me thinking. Can you explain a little bit more on your thoughts on it? Let's
So
like,
I'll paint a picture. And like this is really coming from a personal example of like my mom, for example. I find from my experience of her and our conversations, if she completely separates and like lets go of like my umi and upi, like those would be her parents. It's like she's from Germany. So like German was actually my first language, fun fact.
oh
Like my
wow.
whole that side of the family is all German. And I know Amber, if you're still like, I know we talked about this. So, but the idea of like, I could see in her and she was kind of aware of, she's like, no, like I hold on to this because that's like her connection to them. And she's somewhat apprehensive of letting go of some of those things because she feels like she might lose them. And I wonder, even from my own experience, I'm like, yeah, maybe like if we tie some of those either experiences or feelings or emotions to that's how we keep that memory or like person alive in our own experience in our own lives.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I got that. So I identified myself as the girl who lost people. So I always believed in my life that if you came close to me, you were going to die, or I was going to break your heart, or you were going to break my heart, but it was never going to last. It was never going to work. Something was going to happen. And so being able to, well, like when I lost all those people, especially last year it was a good 2 years where I was struggling a lot with losing people in my life. And I figured that if I stayed sad or I stayed depressed or I stayed suicidal or if I struggled, then I was keeping the memory of those people alive because that's what they would want. They struggled. You know, I lost my friend to suicide last year and all I kept thinking was, I can't be happy. She's gone. Like she wasn't happy. How am I supposed to be happy? You know, and it kept me in this little box, in this little space that like I get to do work. Like I get to be happy and stuff. I get to be okay because if they were here, that's the life I would be going for. And just because they're not in my life anymore doesn't mean that I get to lose my identity of who I want to be. And with that coming in like relationships or losing people based on your relationships, I say if your growth makes people want to separate away from you, then you don't need them in your circle at all. And that's blood family, that's friends, aunts, uncles, anything. I
Wow.
learned that a lot. If I wanted to grow, I couldn't be with the people who were okay with me being the wallflower and playing small. And all my old bad habits of my eating or drugs or alcohol or whatever, I couldn't be in that space. My people that were around me, which is right now, needed all my people to hold me accountable and to hold me to a higher level, you know? And if they didn't do that, or if they don't do that, or they show signs that they're not doing that, then I'm like, okay, like I appreciate the relationship and thank you for everything you've taught me, but this doesn't serve me in my life anymore. And I love you, but it doesn't serve me.
Oh, and that's so, and like, I just want to share that with everybody is the idea of like, 'cause this comes up time and time again, man. I'm curious in your life how it comes up. Is like, it's not a matter of, is it right? Is it wrong? Is it like good or bad? It's like, does it serve you? Does it not? Like, does it serve the situation? And does it not? And when I pose that to people, especially the first time they hear that, they're like, dang, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really interesting way to put it because there's so much, again, like sometimes identity to like, it has to be like a binary yes or a no, good or a bad. Or it's like, hey, does it serve us or does it not? And like, or Eric always asked me this question. It's like, what are we pretending not to know? Like, what are you pretending
Yes.
not to know, dude? I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
you got me on that one.
You know, that question in when you're in the training really stuck out to me. And I was like, what am I pretending not to know? And that's when I kind of was like, oh, let's dig deeper. But you know what serves us and what doesn't serve us, I think is such an important question to ask ourselves, along with what's working and what's not working. Because if I'm
Yeah.
in a situation, and I still struggle in a lot of areas with doing things that really doesn't serve me, everybody does. We have our moments, but
Yeah.
ultimately, like if I get really pissed off and someone makes me really angry, I could react right there. I mean, I grew up fighting. I can react right there. Like, you know, so it takes me to like sit and pause and say like, okay, is punching this person in the face and reacting that way outwardly going to serve me? Probably not. What's going to serve me is probably walking away or using my words to actually make a bigger impact because what I have to say is going to be a lot more than what my fist can do to their face or whatever that looks like. So it's every moment you're doing something and choosing like, is this going to serve me? Is it not? drinking water, is that going to serve me or is it not? Yeah, it's probably going to serve me. Not getting 3 hours of sleep probably is going to serve me. You know, like every little aspect of your life, does it serve my vision? Does it not serve it?
100%. So, and I think to your point, because this is something I've had to, and I continuously get to not only dive into, but remind myself of, is like, what is it that I want to serve in the first place? Like, what do we stand for? Like, what are we standing for? What is it that we're trying to work towards? Because that's something I've realized a couple stages in my life. So I'm laughing right now because my wife is on one of my on one of my channels, like in the chat. So it's like, it says Coach Mike, and it's just so funny to see me like not saying that. So yeah, she's like, yeah, staying hydrated. Or maybe that's my buddy Nikki Ludes. That's actually probably because I gave like two different people have my login, like my buddy Nikki Ludes and my wife Ashley. And I'm bet you it's Nikki Ludes because he's actually going to be going live streaming gaming after this. So anyways, just random side note, but just the things that come up. But I think to your point, like, or to the point I'm trying to make into kind of what you're kind of alluding to here is, even with the serving us, is like, what do we want it to serve? Like, what do you even want to go towards? And then David saying, hey, again, yeah, what's up, David? Thanks for circling it back and dropping back in. You got the good stuff right now, David. You're getting into the right part of the combo, or every part's the right part of the combo, but this is the good part. So yeah, I wonder too, because like going through even leadership, we get to create these amazing, juicy goals. And then I'm curious, from your experience, I would speculate you've learned some tips and tricks along the way to even like facilitate those juicy goals being created for yourself and for others. And I wonder if you had anything that would be helpful to share. I'm kind of putting you on the spot right now.
Really, just anything that gives you the tiniest bit of like, I don't know, that needs to be your goal. Like anything that, like, I want to learn the piano, and I want to play the piano. And for the longest time, I've been like, it's scary. So now that's one of my goals. And like, I just love it. And the thing that makes you the most like cringe in your skin, go for it. But I also think it's really important to listen to your inner child. I think as adults, we get out of our play mentality. You know, we used to color as a kid and go outside and play and just dance freely and go to a park and go on the swings. And as adults, we lose that because of culture and stereotypes and, you know, the typical like lifestyle. So being able to really tap into that, like if my body tells me I'm going to color, then I'm going to get a coloring book and I'm going to sit on my floor and color. Like, because it's telling me to color, and I know that for some reason in the future, it's going to serve me. You know?
So awesome. Can I just tell you? So me and Lena, I had to get my measurements done for a wedding. Shout out to my brother-in-law, Carl. He's getting married in a couple weeks.
Oh, congratulations.
And yeah, Coco. So Lena, my older, I was like, you know what, Lena, I was just in Vegas. Like, I miss you. Tessa's taking a nap. Ashley's taking a nap. Let's go have some lunch. We'll go get our measurements. And by we, I mean me. And then she just wanted to play hide and seek in the middle of Men's Warehouse. So me and her just played hide and seek. Like, I didn't give an F about like what anyone had to say. And everyone was cool. Like, they were just like totally playing with us. And it was so interesting to watch the catalyst, like being the source of that. Everyone had a great time. It's like, but before I knew it, the whole entire like store was playing hide and go seek with us. Like,
yeah, adults crave it. We want that. We want that playfulness, that joy, that love. Adults want it. We just don't always know how to give it because of our own stuff, our own story, our own ego and pride. We don't always know how to give it. My nephew's a great example of that. He does, you know, whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He's sassy and is like, calls me a bum, and he talks crap, and he just does whatever he wants. And that was such a huge inspiration for me. Like, look at this kid just dancing freely, wearing whatever he wants. He has a stain on his shirt, and he's like, look at my stain, Auntie Dom. I'm like, we don't do that as adults. So why not tap into that? So then I just started acting like my nephew. And I was just like, if I wanted to get up and dance right now, if my heart was telling me to do that, I'm going to get up and have a dance party because it's fun. And when we're in public, if he says, can you pick me up and put me on your shoulders? You bet I can, because that's play. It's play for me. It's play for him. And adults need that play in our lives, because then if not, we get in this robotic system of, you know, the system that's set up for us. And that's not what it's designed to be like.
And then this is where like I put my coach hat on for a second. What I would offer anybody, you don't like need to get a workout program. You don't need to do anything. You want to get in the best shape of your life. Just go play with your kids. If you have kids, if you have like nephews, nieces, play with them like just 1 hour a day, even 20 minutes. 20 minutes, do what kids do for like 20 minutes to an hour every single day. some of the best conditioning you'll get, and it's so much fun.
Yes, a kid's love language is quality time. So the best way to connect with them is quality time. And I swear I'll play with my nephew for like 20 minutes running around. And I'm like, okay, give me a break, please. Okay. He's like, we need a break. Why? I'm like, just give me a break. It's the best workout of your life.
Dude, that's why I tell Lena like now, because she's 4, so she's getting to the point where she like wants to race me and she's competitive. So I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna let you win a race, just so you understand. Like one day you'll beat me in a race, and I will accept that when that happens, but I'm not letting you win in a race. And because I'm a very competitive person, so I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's like what I like my experience of it. And then David, that sounds cool too. You're saying I used to be in a group where we played games like skip too and just play and like, yeah, man, that's like, it's just so much fun. Like, why would we not do that? At least now in hindsight, having that experience more. So I would invite you guys to just, if there's one thing you take away from this, I just invite you to just play. And like you're saying, like, listen to that inner child. And then this is where like, dude, we've already been like crushing it for an hour. So
I know.
I want to provide you the opportunity. I always, not saying you have to leave, you don't have to go anywhere, but I always like to give you the window of saying, hey, listen, I know you got other things probably going on with your day and with your life. So this could be a great time. If you want to go, you totally can. But I would always like to ask the question, what's one thing you'd like to invite the audience listening to do? Whether it's like, again, joy related or anything like that, just to share or invite them. That I think, again, you have so much value and so much insight. I'm putting you on the spot here, but you always deliver when I put you on the spot. So I'm just going to keep on doing it.
Okay.
So what's one thing you would invite?
One thing I would invite you guys to do is go give back. Go pay it forward.
Ooh.
Go do something for somebody else, no matter what your mood is, no matter how much money you have. You could write notes for people and put them on people's cars, go pass them out. You know, whatever it is, just go give back in some way, because what you give out, you get back in abundance. And by that's energy, love, thanks, gratitude, whatever that looks like. So always pay it forward. If there's one thing that you take away, it's just always pay it forward, always give back.
Boom. And I've been like, fun fact, guys. So I've been like cycling through different products in the carousel, but I wanted to go all the way back to your book, Dom, since we're like just talking about this. And I would invite you guys, everybody, go buy the book, go read it, share. And here's the thing. This is the one thing I know about you, Dom. Like, you are inviting and love all feedback, right? No matter what anyone has to say, I know that you want to hear feedback. So I'm looking forward to actually like finishing the book and actually like not letting it out of my hands, so that I'm not going to worry about anyone like putting it anywhere on me. I don't have to worry about where it went, and being able to offer up some of the notes that I have from my perspective. And I just always appreciate you taking the time, dude. Like, that's just, it means so much, because like you talk about giving, like I've watched you transform so many people's lives and like the ripple effect. So this is, I guess, maybe the last thing I'd like to ask is, do you ever get to think and like pause and be like, man, like not just like the 1 degree of separation, but the exponential ripple effect of the impact that you have and that you've already created, not like what you're already going to create in your life, because I already see that as well, but like what you've already done. Just if you were like just thinking about this moment, do you give yourself that opportunity to reflect on that enough, or not even enough? Maybe that's not the right way to word it.
I do actually. It took me a long time to get to this place to be able to acknowledge myself, but I do. Last year I sat and I thought about like my funeral and how many people would be at my funeral and what they would be saying about me. And I got into a space where it was like, I had like 2 or 3 people that were there. And it was like, wow, Dom, we didn't even know you. Like, that's all I could hear them say is, we didn't even know who she was. Like, she was never authentic. She was just pretending. And I didn't want that to like be my story. So now I look at it and I give myself such praise that now my funeral would be thousands of people. I mean, I've worked not only at Choice with all these amazing groups of people and been able to lead winning teams and winning people to the finish line, but
torchbearer.
Yeah. Coaching teenagers. And I worked at treatment facilities, residential treatment facilities, for about 3 years of my life. And I was able to give back there, and all those people I impacted. And I give myself praise now, because I know that a year ago I didn't want to be here and I didn't see a purpose for my life. And now I see so much purpose. So I get to give myself praise for how far I've come, because based on my trauma and things I've been through, I could be in a totally different situation. And I'm blessed to have been able to do the work and to be where I'm at. So I give myself that praise. It came with a lot of work, and it takes a lot of like courage to say that, but I can say I'm proud of myself, and I love myself, and I'm happy with my life.
Dude, and I just want to echo that and also express gratitude, man. Not only for myself, but I know I can confidently speak this from like every single person that you've been able to impact. I know because I've obviously been impacted by, so I can speak from that gratitude perspective. And then hold on, yeah, like unfortunately it doesn't show the name, but you are amazing. Of course, yeah,
Oh,
you are amazing.
thank you.
I echo that. I echo that. And then yeah, Lexi loves. She's like, hell yeah, you know. But yeah, dude, I just want to like echo the love and gratitude, man. That's kind of my point.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And you see the comments, like people commenting stuff like that's my circle. That's my people. And that's the ripple effect. So I can't not give myself praise when I see my ripple effect playing out every single day and everyone around me. Like my aunt started it 15 years ago with this work, and then I took it on now, and now I'm on a mission and I'm not stopping until my family's healed. And I get to see it every day, and my cousins, my siblings, everybody.
That's it. And then I'm just laughing because of the chat. Like Azima says she's proud of y'all. Lexi, whoop whoop. Yeah, of course, dude. Like it's amazing, honestly. It's like so inspiring just to watch. And I'm just so thankful and grateful and proud to honestly be able to like just offer up a platform for everyone to be able to like hear this and the impact I know it's going to have. And obviously, like, we're going to have you come back and be able to talk not only about your book, but just as the process goes on and anything, like, just know you always have an open invite here. You want to come on, dude, I don't even have to be here. You could just come on and like, just like talk whenever. And obviously when you have your own podcast, we're going to support you in there and announce that and put that out there. So I guess that's my only other question is share anything else. This is like, again, the stage is yours. Anything to plug, anything to share, anything that like, again, I'm going to invite everybody to go get your book and be able to read it and just read it again and be able to really let that in. But I'm going to just leave it to you for like the final, like, what do we got?
Yeah. So, I mean, I really don't have anything to plug besides my book. I want my book and my words to be the thing that moves mountains and changes the world. So go check out my book. What more is there? And that's it.
Damn.
I mean, social media, if it's linked, like go ahead. But really my book, I want that to change lives. And the plus side of my book is I don't keep any of the profit that I make off of my book. I donate it all towards tuitions of people to go through Choice Center and the work that kind of gets put back into it. So into their own personal development, whether they want a therapist or whatever that looks like. So go get the book, because in one way or another, we're helping people.
Dude, that's so amazing. That last piece is like even more awesome to me that I'm just realizing now. So again, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time and just like you standing for you and the ripple effect that creates in our world. So with that being said, everybody, I'm going to give us a cheers. We're going to sign off and yeah, y'all, until tomorrow, I'll be back.
Yes. Thank you for having me on. I love this. Thank you.
Yeah. And then we got the fun outro too. This is like, it's always cool. I feel so legit now. We have an intro outro kind of a deal. Let's do the outro play.
Let's go.